Hey everyone, how's it going?
Yay. I know. Hey, that's big. That's big. Hey, let's go. Hardest challenge is just downsizing this so that it's less than 8 megabytes. Yeah, my clip is exporting too large. Oh, nice.
I didn't get past the planning stage for anything I wanted to do. I'm still working on animation principles and I'm learning a bit better with Krita and stuff.
Just the picture, just to try and get like the shapes down for like the head and the body and stuff. The turnaround, but everything else for the smear and stuff, only my knowledge of like how other animators and stuff like that have kind of like done this before and like seen that kind of stuff. So like the flames were, I would guess, most I don't know, reference or not, because I didn't really look at anything for the flames. It took me a couple of times, but then eventually I kind of what is it? Kind of treated it like rotoscoping a little bit. Thank you.
I like the way transitions from the running to the smoke to well, running to the flames to smoke. That was very and it's fun to watch.
Thank you. I've ever wanted to hear. Mhm, 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 yep. Yeah, very slightly. It's basically gonna be the same thing except for, like, the thumbs up. Mhm, mhm,
Can't get great.
mhm. Yeah, you're right, that would be I should add some bounce to it. Mhm.
What what talking about the spikes on his head or spikes on his
Yeah,
body?
the spikes on his head and
Yeah,
mm,
they're I I'm at least I watch enough Sonic animation to know they are like slightly flexible. It varies based on how wacky you want to make it, but they do move like I mean they're barely secondary. Like sometimes they barely move. Like even with this classic Sonic style that Josh is going for here, like they don't with classic Sonic they don't move that much like in the but they do follow art when they
yep.
how do you stretch it though with that original shape? Because I feel like that was purple.
Yeah, no, both points true.
Well, that was very interesting.
Yeah, I just wanted to also comment on Vintage's piece. Like I said last time, like yeah, it's really really good, and yeah, like I like the smear frames are so cool. Like just because I don't know, yeah, like it's hard to like for them to look good, they have to sort of have a consistent style, and I think you managed to do that. And yeah, it's like that build up. Just there's just something really satisfying about that build up to where the fire starts coming out. like, but yeah, really cool. I think like the one part that I could maybe give some feedback on is like right after the thumbs up where he turns his head to start running. I thought there was just a moment of I'm not sure. Actually, it's not even in this one. It might be in the other clip. In the other, might be the. You might have fixed it actually. It's not up looking at that clip. So okay, all right. Is this the newer one or the older?
This is the newer one. Now.
This is the newer. Okay, okay, it is this one. Okay, so yeah, like right when he turns his head, right here. Okay, yeah, that something about that. The timing of that seemed a little too quick for me, or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, or like he turns his head, and then yeah, it's like like I feel like maybe he needs to turn his head further or something. Like I don't know, like it just kind of stops like at a quarter turn, which I thought was I don't know. That was the only thing that stood out to me. Everything else I thought was pretty cool, pretty on point, and definitely did justice to Sonic, who who has a lot of there's a lot of history there in his style. So yeah.
Yeah, true.
Nice work.
I realized that I forgot to fix the timing or do the timing for the head turn.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, that was just a small thing, but yeah.
It's really good though. It's really, really nice. All right.
I agree.
Great job.
Let's take
Thank you.
let's take a quick look then at meshes. Okay. Okay, so these keys are all very interesting, Mesh. There's a lot happening here. There is him laughing like crazy, and I really like the exaggeration there in the laugh. Like he looks like a complete maniac. I think that's really interesting. And he gets hit by a rubber ducky, and, and then he gets hit by a really big rubber ducky. That is definitely very interesting. Okay, so one thing that I didn't mention a lot in Vintage, and that's because Vintage is kind of is okay with that. Yours is a little less okay with that. Is that there's a lot of very, very scratchy lines here.
Yeah.
And this is not about exaggeration itself. Like the exaggeration looks fine, the keyframes look interesting, right? Like the poses are very interesting. The way he kind of like does the. Let me take a look. Like there's a world where maybe you could exaggerate a little more, but like it's fine. The hit is interesting. I mean, the recoil of the hits could maybe be a bit more dramatic, but like there aren't really enough frames to see it, I think. Let me see. And there's a serious lack of clarity in general with the frames, you know?
Yeah.
Like especially like this one, the next one. This one really stands out to me. Like the face is really interesting, but the rest of the body is like really hard to like grasp, you know.
Mm.
And while this isn't necessarily a bad thing from like this isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's the kind of thing that you should try to make as clear as possible, as early as possible, especially your keyframes, because it's going to help you down the line.
Yeah.
It really is. And
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, yeah, like, yeah, I probably should have done some like a few solid keyframes before I started doing like breakdowns and stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, like in terms of the actual exaggerations, like this looks interesting. I like that it's I like the comic book lines. I think that's really neat. Okay, that's nice as well. I like they did that. Is this a character from Gorillas?
Yeah, it's supposed to be Murdoch from the Gorillas, but yeah, I never really like. I was originally gonna go back over it and nail down the like put him more on model, but yeah, yeah.
You did a job. I knew I recognized him for something.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Yeah,
I was gonna
yeah.
comment
Thank
that
you.
too. I was like, is that Murdoch? But
Like
Yeah,
I don't know their
same thing. I was
names,
like,
but
looks
they're
oddly
definitely
familiar.
recognizable.
Yeah, he's a little off model, but but yeah, I was gonna go back and try to do that, but I didn't quite get enough time.
and even though it is sketchy, it does capture the character, like
It
even
does.
in the gestures too.
Yeah, it does. Like the poses are really nice and interesting and lively. I can
Yeah.
definitely say that much.
The body language really speaks.
It
Ah,
does.
yeah.
It does.
Nice.
I think the thing I like too is the sketchiness kind of adds to the mood, kind of makes it kind of grungy, even if you can't see some of the frames. I like how the sketchiness it kind of makes you think of. I know it's not exactly right, but it kind of makes you think of how Ed and Eddie can be messy sometimes, even if it's not
Oh.
right. It was what I first thought of because like there are some animations that are really messy and grimy looking, but they're not. Uh, they're technically competent.
Wait,
You know,
wait.
sure.
Y'all are reminding me of a thing. Let me see if I find it real quick. This is this is Sisyphus animation. Yeah, there we go. So this is a this is an animated short from like '74.
Oh, I think you need. Oh, okay, never mind.
It's kind of old. But the interesting thing about this, since we're talking about like sketchiness and like the value of the line and that kind of stuff, because ultimately that's what we're talking about here, is like how to use texture, how to use line, how to be expressive with that kind of stuff. This is a really interesting short because it uses a lot of variation. It goes through very thin lines, very clear shapes, very solid drawing, but it also uses very interesting brush strokes. Sometimes, if I remember correctly, sometimes even dirty brush strokes. So like not even clean stuff. Very abstract or abstracted imagery as well. And this is very interesting, and I think it's definitely an interesting watch since we're talking about this. It's 2 minutes. Is Nacho here? Nacho, will this kind of stuff get us copyrighted? Let me just make sure that that's not a thing.
If it has music, it's a good chance it would.
Music doesn't come
But
through.
but you could turn off the audio.
Yeah,
maybe
music
turn off
doesn't
the
come
audio.
through. It doesn't have music. It's just like sounds of breathing and exhaustion. I'm not joking.
Sounds interesting.
Okay. Wait. Give me a second, though. Give me a second, because y'all aren't seeing this. There we go. Now you should be. Alright, so this was it.
Now that was impressive.
It is. It really is. Like, quite frankly, it really is.
Yeah, I feel tired now. Like I feel exhausted from watching it. Like I could feel the weight of it. Like
And the interesting thing is that in the same animation where you get drawings like is frame by frame, like I can't really find them specifically, but you get like JoJo drawings where like every muscle is drawn in detail. You also get frames that look like this and this, where it's just blobs and so there's a lot of like graphic variation here where you still are able to understand the figure and discern what there is.
Well, this will make sense as a question, but do you think because in the beginning, like in the first quarter of the animation or so, there was like a lot of frames where it wasn't very thin, like there was like almost thin lines, or like almost no frames. Like, do you think that change in line quality as they got like stronger, as like they built up anticipation, like do you think every frame was more deliberate, or do you think it was like along the lines of just getting the general mood? Do you think like every frame was more controlled, or like
For this animation in specific, right?
yeah?
This one is, at least in my eyes, like I'm not like 100% sure of the history of this.
Yeah, I'm just asking.
But to me, it's like exactly. To me, what this short is about, like it being about Sisyphus and rolling up the stone, is just an excuse, right? It could be about anything. What the artist wanted to try and see and explore here is precisely the dynamic line quality, the variation, the grunginess, variation in weight, variation in thickness, variation in the kind of brushstrokes, in the kind of like utensils. Very clean like pen marks, and then very dirty like brush marks, like all these kinds of things. So I definitely think that the way that the line weight changes is extremely intentional in this one. I don't think that's even something to question here. because that's the point of this short in a way. It's to really like see what we can do with line work. And I think that's, or see what this artist could think of. And I think that that's really interesting. And this goes back to like the line work here, where the line work being sketchy isn't necessarily as intentional, right? Like that's not something we're specifically looking at. When we're doing these exercises, we're focusing more on the character and the motion itself and the actions and the readability and that kind of stuff. So we're not focusing on this kind of technical artistic side. But this is definitely something that can be explored as well. And since we're talking about like the grungy thing and the grungy what you said, the grungy line work, and it gets you into the vibe and everything, yes, it definitely can. And it can definitely be intentional as well. Although it's not very common. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but I hope it does.
No, you did. That's basically, I wanted your opinion. Thank
I definitely thought it was more abstract and a test of the human perception of how to test different brush strokes and to see if people can recognize a figure from very detailed to very little form.
Definitely.
And I wouldn't say intentional, but how much effort was put into each one. Like these ones right here, like a lot of effort, or moderate amount of effort. There was some where they had that JoJo Baki esque muscle structure where every single muscle was defined. There was one where he was literally just a squiggle or a swirl. And even as we get into the later ones that you were showing, where he's just like these are still moderate, still defining the muscles and stuff like that. Some of the, like right around here, like that stuff, low effort. It's intentional, highly intentional, but like to be able to put those brushstrokes down easy compared to like some of the detail in the other ones.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's easy, but you gotta know where to put them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, highly skilled artist, but
it's simple. It's not a lot of effort, but it's definitely not easy.
just like these ones, very like this is almost stick figure. But as you were going back, like to be able to capture those little bits, those little indents, in the muscle as well, to know how the muscle curves and all that kind of stuff, to be able to show each individual muscle, even though it's all one blob, that's very intentional.
I'm trying to find the squiggle. Because I know the squiggle.
Mm-hmm. that was the most impressive part to me.
Also, how the breathing is tied to the thickness of the lines and the motion itself. I think that's interesting.
The breathing, they didn't have like a stroke tool back then where you can make it thicker or thinner. They had to like draw all those individuals.
Yeah, this is all by hand. This is all by hand. This ain't like computer stuff.
Oh yeah. No, this is back in my day. That's 49 years ago. They literally had no computers. They were just like board, sell, paperback. You literally have to go, all right, this paper. You literally have to eyeball it. You would have to be like, all right. And they'd have literally like 10 different pages. And they'd be like 1, 2, and it just flipping back and forth. It was very intentional back then, and nothing like today. You're real spoiled today.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this is definitely very interesting. And on
the artist.
On topic of being spoiled, I have like a bunch of folders upstairs with like 200, 300, like 500 drawings of traditional animation. I know what this is like.
The artist drew the first and the last frame, and then used a classic tween in between.
But yeah, so going back to this, in terms of exaggeration, it's definitely very interesting. It's definitely expressive. I like this a lot. Definitely a lot happening. But that seems to be the trend. I'm glad y'all enjoy this to the point of going overboard with the exercises. This is really cool to see.
And the only thing I'd say that. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say I really enjoy the frame by frame and then the exaggeration of the tongue, the facial expression, the body language that goes along with just overall and the hands, the way to express the body and hand, just to express what he's trying to get across. And even when he's being hit by the duck twice, you can see the shock or you can see the surprise in the body language. And that makes it all the more interesting because look at the tongue, look at the eyes. It's just even the placement of the hand, right? It's
Definitely.
just shock of what just hit me. So it tells you just by looking, and I think that's very well placed and drawn.
Definitely. Definitely.
Thank you.
And the only thing I'd like to see in this one, if you go forward to where the big duck crushes him, is just a blur for the legs as they come up when he first gets crushed.
Yeah,
Yeah, true.
yeah, that would be a good spot for that.
Yeah, agree.
True, definitely. All right.
Like I literally just finished an animation a few days ago,
Do you want to
and
show it?
full color, about 2 minutes 40 seconds, fully sounded, fully color, fully animated, but by a specialized program, which thankfully I figured out recently. And I was fooling around with exaggeration, stretch and squanch, techniques, right? And it kind of worked out.
All right. Would you like to show it?
Nice.
Yeah, if you want, I can show it to you.
Feel free to. Like
just
post it.
yeah.
Post it in the 10-second clips. Just make a post for it. We'll have a look at it.
Yeah, I can do that later.
All right. Let's just take a quick look then at the Wakfu clip you sent. Since we were looking at exaggeration, I'm assuming the interest here is precisely in the smear frames and the way that the weapons are moving, and that they're posing and like all the different attacks and everything. Is that it?
Yeah. Well, I thought in general, I thought it would be cool to analyze a fight scene, but yes, I picked one that had what I thought were a lot of interesting smears and just the timing and stuff. But yeah, I mean, yeah, if there's any particular thing that you think is worth pointing out, that yeah, I guess I'm not looking for anything in particular, but yeah, those were the things that stood out to me.
Let's take a look at this.
I know how you do smear frame. Smear, obviously do extend lines and stuff like that. But I wonder how people plan smear. That's a curiosity. Like, how do you plan?
How do you plan the fight scene?
Not a fight scene, a smear in the middle of a fight scene. I'll be more specific. But yeah, like that frame right there. Like, how do you plan which lines and which part of the figure to smear?
Partially intellect, partially laziness.
I would say, if I had to say, it's like, how do you plan which lines you're going, or where the smears are going to be? I'd say that you typically don't until you're doing tie downs. Or if you're going, or like, unless you're going for like really exaggerated smears, or really exaggerated like frames, like in the Sonic thing where the body disappears and then the entire thing turns to a ball. Like those things are plannable. Something like this, where it's like spinning, you can generally like sort of plan, but it also like you can't. Like when you're doing tie downs, you're going to be marking out the different things, and that's when you're going to be realizing these things are happening. And tie downs are fairly down the line, I'd say, because like first you gotta do roughs. I mean, eventually when you do the roughs, this reminds me of a different thing we saw before. Is it 4-8? No. No. Yes, it was the Garena thing. That was week 9, I think. No, it was earlier. 8? Yeah, it was. Because here we do get a very action-heavy scene, and we do get like the different parts of it. So, for the record, what we just watched before was not an animatic. But let's go through this. Like, these are very difficult shots to do. But already you're seeing that, like, there isn't a lot of... There is, like, some smearing in, like, this guy, for example. But you're not seeing a lot of it. You're seeing smearing here because you know that there's going to be this kind of movement. It's going to be very fast. So you estimate that that's going to be smeared. And here's being thrown. So yes, in a way it's like, you know what you're doing. Looking at something like this, you can see, okay, the artist knew what they were going to be doing. So they went with it. And they said, okay, I think this is going to be smear. I think this is going to be smear. This is going to be squashed. It's going to be stretched. It's going to be like all these different things. So when you get into a rough, this is when you're starting to see like actual smearing, proper smearing. And this is okay. We got to look at this slowly. Okay. See, this is where you're actually starting to see the smearing appear. And this is like the part where you're pretty much drawing every frame, just not perfectly. And here, you're gonna see that smear that they sketched out before. And here it is, a different one. Because like you do it in between the keyframes for the most part. It's very unlikely that there's going to be a keyframe where you're going to be smearing stuff. And the reason for that is that the keyframes are the frames where you're supposed to be able to read the character. And because those are the frames where you're supposed to be able to read the character, those are the frames where you're going to be wanting to make things clear. So you're not going to be wanting to be smearing those frames. So generally it happens between keyframes. So it's not something that you plan in keying. It's something that you can account for when you're doing breakdowns. But ultimately it's something that's only going to really show when you're doing rough animation. And then obviously when you go into tie downs, then you really like decide what's going to be smeared and what isn't. So going back to the actual clip of this week, week 11, clips Wakfu. So what we need to consider here is what are the keyframes. So this is a keyframe for damn sure, and this is a keyframe, and then the smears are just like, okay, the guy's coming from above, so you just do that line. This is a breakdown, by the way. And this is a different keyframe of interaction. Let's take a look at this real quick. Basically, the difference between keying and so planning a fight scene or a really action-packed scene and a more slow and calm scene is that keying something like this is going to require that you're very, very intense with the keyframes. They have to be happening all the time, and they have to be extremely clear. The poses need to be very clear, very dramatic, and they need to be happening constantly. Here you can see, so like first one of the time they interact. Second time, it's a different one. This is another keyframe, and it goes into another one. This is another keyframe of this guy. Well, this is a keyframe for this guy.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Like, aren't they basically like trading off keyframes? Each character takes turns smearing or keyframing.
Definitely, that also happens. Where, like, this gets really complicated, and I'm gonna be completely honest here. It's a little out of my ballpark. Like, I'm not completely comfortable breaking this down. This is definitely a very interesting challenge. I think this is the kind of stuff that's going to be very useful to Mesh or to anyone, this kind of breaking down of a fight scene, if you're looking to animate a fight scene as well. Seeing how they're done, seeing what they're doing. In terms of the theory, it frankly is a little above my level currently. So yeah, I gotta be humble as well. I'm trying to help, but I do have my limits.
No, that's totally fair. I mean, I know this is like, you know, this is obviously a very skilled animator made this, but you know, I think, yeah, I mean, I think the way you've kind of broken it down, actually, yeah, I was just hoping for, yeah, just like, you know, you do seem to have insights about it, and that's what you shared with us. So yeah, I mean, I think just what you said about the approach to the keyframing and stuff, and also comparing it to, you know, answering Bebop's question, like comparing it to that other clip and how you would plan out the smear frames. I thought that was interesting. But yeah.
Basically, I think, like, going over this and thinking this through, it's like there are going to be frames that have to be very clear. Those will be the impact frames. Those are when this is happening, when the dude is smacking the spear, when there's the other one who's doing the spear, like jabs, like 1,000 jabs, like this kind of thing. These are like keyframes that need to be posed, and you need to have them, and they need to be very readable, because these are the highlights of the scene, right? The way that they're fighting needs to be very interesting. So what needs to happen between them is that you need to, in very few frames, convey the changes in their motion, the changes in their poses and all that kind of stuff. So the breakdowns need to also be very dramatic, and you're going to be using smear frames to make the transitions between the keyframes. that is generally the approach that I can see for something like this. But it's definitely not easy.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. This, yeah, it takes a lot of practice to get this. I mean, it looks effortless, like it looks so smooth, but obviously, yeah, a lot of knowledge about like yeah, timing and the posing to
Yeah,
go into that.
this is not easy.
Thank you for walking through it though.
All right. All right. Well, I didn't ask, but did anyone else want to say anything about the clip? Or about what I said about the clip? If not, we're just going to move on to appeal. The topic of today's principles of animation. So today we're going to be talking about appeal, which is the very last thing we're going to be talking about. And this also means the beginning of the end. Kind of. So appeal. There's a lot of things to say about appeal. Because appeal is, well, it is a lot of things. And none of them are like very specific, objective, or easy to point out. In a way, the best way that I've seen this described, and the best way that I'm going to describe this, I think, is it takes everything before and it adds the element of the je ne sais quoi. It's something else. So you use the principles, you use the techniques you've learned before, you use like all the realism guides in a way, and then you bring in the appeal by having interesting things that aren't part of that order and of that rule set in the way that you establish for yourself as you're animating. Appeal is interest, and this was so yeah. It's all of them together, all the principles. It's the structure of animation. It's the timing. It's the spacing. It's the arcs and everything. It's all of them with intent and vision, and breaking them with intent and vision in order to bring about an emotion and create an emotional connection. So while before we study this in a very like dry way of this is how you guide the eye and this is how you can do these specific things, appeal is strictly about creating an emotion. And obviously it's something that transcends the practice of animation specifically. It applies to the set design, the world building, the character design, the way you color, the way you light, colors of light and shadow, the art style in general that you choose to use, and the story and the genre that you're even telling something within. If I had to say, for example, about that short that we watched of Sisyphus, a big part of the appeal of that is precisely how the line weight and the dynamic line expression changing feels so intertwined with the animation, with the story and with what's being told and with the actions. And that's what makes it interesting and unique and fun to me as well. It's that there's that element that's being really like toned in. Like you don't really know who that guy is. He's just pushing up a rock. It's Sisyphus, whatever. But it's the way it's explored makes it appealing. Makes it interesting, makes it new, creates an emotional reaction. When you see the lines get thicker when he breathes in and then they get thinner as he pushes it out, Like all those things are elements of appeal. And here are two images of appeal, both of which are appealing in their own way, and I just described the third kind of way of appeal. Where appeal isn't, like, it isn't a binary of appealing and unappealing, of good and bad or something like that. There's all a wide variety of appeal, and it's all intertwined with everything that's been mentioned before, and all the other principles, and the character designs, and the story and the genre, and all that kind of stuff. So just because the rabbits are cuter than the Joker, that doesn't mean they're any more appealing or less appealing. Ultimately, that's going to depend on a lot of factors. And appeal is also tied to memorability, as in really, really memorable characters do tend to be very appealing, and they tend to be very unique, and they tend to have something that makes them really stand out. The same goes for memorable stories and all those sorts of things. So in a way, appeal is finding the interest, the uniqueness, and the life in the design, or in the character and the motion, and then trying to bring it out. And these are two examples where I particularly do find the Hulk one kind of funny, because these are just give me a second, this needs to get out of here. These are just two still pictures, but if you have watched the Avengers, then you probably know this scene, or this shot in particular. Is it from the Avengers? It's from Marvel. It's probably not from the Avengers, but this is, if I'm not mistaken,
It is, I believe.
if I'm not
Like the first
mistaken, this
movie?
is between Hulk and Thor. And this is a moment where Hulk just pulls out a punch that happens in like 3 frames. And Thor just vanishes out of the screen. Just yeets away, flies into Narnia. And that's completely breaking like the laws of physics and like all the rules for like how animation's supposed to work. Like, there's no like slow in, slow outs, there's no anticipation, there's no nothing. It's just a moment, 3 or so frames where it's he just punches really hard and Thor goes out flying. And this is an appealing moment. It builds character. It breaks the rules, definitely, but it breaks them with the intention of creating that precise reaction. That precise surprise, that precise interest. And yeah. And that's the part here. This other one is from the Bambi, the movie. And it's when this character sees a very attractive other animal. Yeah, other bunny. This bunny sees a very attractive bunny while they're hopping away. And they stop. They freeze in midair. And this is also breaking the rules of the movie, because even though it's a Disney animated movie, the animation usually doesn't do that. And the fact that like all these things are working and then suddenly they're not, it's like, oh wait, that's a very interesting reaction. Like, what's happening here? And this kind of stuff, this kind of peek out of the order of the rest of the animation, out of the structure, creates interest in what would otherwise be a standard motion. You could do this in a myriad of ways. Like, you could exaggerate the reaction instead of just a freeze frame. You could do it in a whole host of ways. All of them would be just as valid. But the point is, it's creating these moments that stand out, that even in some ways often break the rules, and in doing so create something interesting that breaks from the order of what would otherwise be regular, following all the principles kind of animation. Because that doesn't always need to happen all the time. And then we're just a quick shot of character design. We're not going to go very deep in here. We're talking about shapes. Same goes for arcs. Same goes for timing. You can create appeal in arcs and timing, in the shapes, in the way the characters change shape. Goes back to the video we watched, the short Sisyphus. The way that the shapes are changing of the body, and the poses are very dynamic and all that. Yeah. So yeah, here is of a very, very airy and difficult to pinpoint topic. Appeal is a lot of things, and because it's a lot of things, it becomes very personal and individual. And what's appealing to me doesn't need to be appealing to you, not all the time. And oftentimes the important thing is to find the appeal, you so that you know what you're going for, and so that you can lean on it. And those people who see the appeal that you're creating, they'll love it. And because of this individuality of it, it becomes very experiential. It becomes very much a sort of, you need to see it to know it, or you need to do it to know it, or you need to see it to do it, something like that. It's not something that, like, you don't just find the appeal by theorizing about it. Oftentimes you find it by doing it, by creating, by looking for different things, and exploring different ideas and different subjects and different ways of the same idea, and seeing, okay, this is where I really want to lean into. And the same goes for motion. Sometimes you may be wanting something more realistic. Sometimes you maybe want to break a little bit from that. There's all the vast myriad of things that you can do with appealing motion. That you're oftentimes only going to see if you look around, if you see what's happening, if you see other artists, if you see what they do. And that's ultimately the kind of main takeaway that I could be able to get, that I was able to extract from this after racking my brain on how to write this thing for 2 weeks. Look around and look for what you find interesting when you're looking for appeal. Sketch, fail, and create. So create, fail, sketch, whatever. The order doesn't matter so long as it happens. And eventually, you're gonna find that one thing that actually sticks the landing, and that's appealing, and that it works. And that goes the same for motion. Look for the motion style that actually works for what you're trying to say. Look at the way other artists do it. Look at the way that the shows that you love do it. Look at the way that the movies that you love do it. Look at the ways that the games that you love do it. All these different things, they're very, very interesting, and they're definitely worth having a look at. So, and the artists, of course, if I hadn't mentioned that already. And use it for your own motion, for your own animations, for your own character designs. Look for the appeal in others to try and find the appeal of what you love and what you want to create. And this is probably the most esoteric class or group meeting or whatever that we've had so far. But I have no real way to like. I don't know if what I'm saying is right, or like if what I'm saying is clear, or if it makes sense. But yeah, this is less about questions. It's more just an open discussion. If you want to talk about it, feel free.
Well, first I want to say, even though it's a very esoteric topic, I think you did explain it very well. I think you hit on a lot of interesting points, and yeah, like the point you made about how you can have a bunny, like a cute bunny rabbit, and you can have the Joker, but like they're both appealing in their own way. I guess just like finding the appeal in something. I it reminds me actually of I remember I watched a documentary about the making of the video game Silent Hill 2, classic of the PlayStation 2 era. But if you know about the Silent Hill games, they're horror games, and there's a lot of locations where there's these really grungy, grimy looking places like bathrooms and like abandoned buildings and stuff, and it looks really gross. But like I remember one of the designers of the game was saying like their intention was to create something that was like really disgusting, but like not something you would look away from. Like you would still like it's somehow beautiful, to look at this, like these grimy places and things. And I think they succeeded because it's sort of like yeah, like like you can tell it's gross, but like you don't like it's still like visually interesting, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. So just like even finding the appeal in like a really gross bathroom or something, like finding I don't know, like yeah, I guess just like the fact that anything can be made appealing if you sort of find a balance, I guess. I don't know. It's very hard to describe, but yeah, that was something that came to mind as you were talking.
All right, thank you. Thank you. I did what I could. But yeah, thank you. The mention of like the bathrooms and all that kind of stuff, that's definitely a big part of it. It's like it's interesting stuff, right? It's like even though it's like disgusting and chaotic and it's not, how do I say this? It makes sense, and the disgustingness is a highlight. You know? Like the disgustingness does not become a negative factor, it becomes a highlight. Where you want to look at it, because it's interesting. Because it stands out in some way. And yeah, I think that's
yeah, and like in that same game, another point they made was like talking about the for animation, like they were talking about the animation of these kind of monster characters who are like sort of mutated people, like nurses and like in a hospital, and just like the way they move, being sort of unnatural, like not how normal humans move, and like that having its own sort of like something that makes you pay attention because it's sort of like like people are used to how people normally move in real life, but seeing someone who's like walking with like their legs like you know, like instead of their legs moving straight forward, they're like always moving at an angle as they're walking and stuff. Like, yeah, just like stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's entirely related to appeal, but yeah. But go ahead, Tiger Tail.
Yeah, so you're saying that they're doing something different to get better attention or engagement from the audience because it's out of the norm.
That does tend to be it. Yes, like it's the golden rule of art in a way. It's like contrast draws the eye, you know. And like in like painting, we have like numbers to designate that kind of stuff. We have like low value, high value, or low luminance, high luminance. We have low saturation, high saturation. Like we have like all these like numbers that even break down what the hell contrast is. We don't tend to have a lot of that when it comes to animation, or at least not yet. And but it's still there, like the way that animation can contrast with itself and with different techniques and styles can definitely create for something that stands out. So today I started watching Non Biori, and for what it's worth, it's an anime. It's an anime about a girl from Tokyo that moves to a place that has so few people in the middle of the country that the school where the other kids study literally has 4 other students, and they're all in the same class, even though they're like wildly different years. It's a very relaxed thing. It's looking to be very promising, very relaxing and fun, and very much my kind of stuff. But it does use, like, every now and again there's like these overly dramatic like freeze frames and like super action kind of like kind of framings of the characters where the background's suddenly gone and it looks like it's just going to be a super action scene where they're going to be using their superpowers and everything. But it's not. It's just kids playing. And like these moments do stand out because they do that in a very comedic and lighthearted way. They play with like these kinds of like different animation things as well, a little bit. And I think that's definitely interesting. And I think there's definitely like a lot of ways we can look at that. Those moments in specific are very interesting and appealing.
Anime is really good at doing that.
What?
Anime is really good at doing that.
Definitely.
But that's also like the interesting quality about appeal, because there's you could start anywhere, and there's so many different things that do it. Like if you've ever seen the show Ed, Edd n Eddy, American cartoon, like
recommended to me so many times.
You've had it recommended?
Yep, I need to see it.
Oh, if you don't know about it, you can just look up Ed, Edd n Eddy Jawbreaker if you haven't, or Jawbreakers or whatever if you haven't seen that.
Ed and Eddie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know how to write it. but it's just like
and like you get such like different styles. They have Chainsaw Man. They're coming out with the new Trigun, and like all these different other like animes with like it's clean, polished, and all that kind of stuff. And so many different animes. Like what I'm talking about here is how magical appeal is. Like things that look dumb can have like the best appeal. Like a Xavier Renegade Angel, which is a show that used to be, or maybe I don't know if it still is. I think it just used to be on Adult Swim, which is like Cartoon Network, but after dark. And like something like that, once you start to like watch that and like really get into it, you see how I don't know what quality it is, but just there's a madness to it, and like the fact that it's made to be terrible actually makes it like great versus like some really great looking anime are just like take it or leave it.
Yeah. I mean, there's one anime that you know, I turned on just because I was bored, but turned out to be, amazing. It was called Chobits, and it was just like in the beginning, I'm like, what is this? But I couldn't turn my eyes away from it. It had such an engagement without having to be exciting, but it was the story and the way that it was stupid, but also then turned, silly and then stupid and silly, and it was a great show, and I loved how mundane and stupid it was, but with the underlying serious story that comes much later in the episodes. And then you piece together this whole thing. It was quite the series. But the animation was quite good.
I can actually say recently an interesting experience. So I've had a friend who came up to me and he told me that he wanted a commission. And he's never done it before, but he wants to know how to do it. And then I said, okay, sure, I'll do it for you. And dude likes dragons a lot, so I expected him to want a dragon. And he did want a dragon. And it's like, oh, what do you picture when you see a dragon? I don't know, but it's probably different from what it actually ended up happening. And for some reason, I just found his idea so funny that just carried over the entire thing. And honestly, I love it a lot. It's a dragon that's like drinking off of a McDonald's cup, like sipping on the straw, with a straw hat and sunglasses. Like the most relaxed dragon ever. And like, I just love that. Like, it's so out of left field, Like, would this be the kind of stuff that I'd put on the portfolio? Like, probably not, but it's so fun, Like, it's appealing in a way, and it's kind of hard to say why. I guess it's kind of dumb.
And I think that's one of the things, like, appeal has to, like, shatter your expectations in a way. Like, one of the things that most recently, like, appealed to me in, like, that kind of strange way, Pop Team Epic. If anyone's ever seen that anime.
No, I don't think I have.
It's a good one. Or if anyone's familiar with Robot Chicken, it's similar to, like, Robot Chicken, which, again, Adult Swim, but Pop Team Epic. I recommend it because it's very wild.
Okay.
There was a cartoon that I collected back in the 70s. Very simple, Italian, and it was called La Lina. And it was basically the artist hand drawing this line and then drawing the character. And then the character would come to life and go, hey, whatever, hey, and wouldn't actually make any actual language, right? But it had music going with it. But from somehow through the body language and what was happening, you would understand what was going on to a degree. But it was very simple. It's just a line in an artist's hand, and then the interaction. It was very interesting. But it is an example in how clean art can convey a situation.
Definitely. Very, very cool.
What was that called again, Tiger?
La Lalina. La Lina. It's, I believe, on YouTube.
Okay. Is one word? Okay, I'll look it up.
I think that's what he said. Regardless, let's just do a quick move on. We can continue the discussion later. I just want to present the exercise now. So, this is a 2 weeks exercise, and it's also going to be the finale of this mini course, so to say. And the point is to introduce a character through animation. So, no need for voice acting. You can do backgrounds, you can do anything. The point is, make that character feel special in that moment that you're showing it. Somehow make it appealing, make it amazing, or make it unique in your own way. If you're doing a villain, highlight that. If you're doing a hero, make it visible. Consider how your favorite movies and shows and video games do it, and try something like what they've done. Consider the intros that I've passed multiple times here for Overwatch, where you see like the characters doing their things. It's like, yeah, that's a good way to introduce the characters. Each one gets their own like little bit of appeal in their own uniqueness. And yeah, so it's a very, very difficult one. Or rather, it's not a very difficult one, but it's definitely one that's... It's not going to have a clear right and a clear wrong. I wouldn't say. Whatever... Like, so long as there's love poured into the animation and everything, I'm sure that it'll work out. And that you'll come up with something that's appealing and impressive in its own right. So yeah. Next week, we're going to be meeting at the same time. Hopefully a little bit earlier, but most likely at the same time. And we're just going to be catching up and seeing how development is going, how the progress is going on this exercise, and we're going to be talking a little bit about it. And then 2 weeks from now, those exercises are going to be posted. We're going to talk about them, the absolute end. And we're going to move into the next phase of Animation Lab, which will not be a mini course anymore. It'll be a lot more relaxed, and it'll be a lot more project focused as well. So if any of you want to start a short or something, now would be a good time to get into that, or to start planning it out. And if you want to keep doing exercises, there most likely will be many exercises to come anyway, so y'all are free to do whatever you want. From here on out, or from then on out, the sessions will probably not be streamed, though. So have a good one. If any of you have any ideas, do feel free to talk about it. It's getting a little late on my end, so I'm probably going to have to cut it here. But I do hope that you've enjoyed the class. I thought the discussion was very interesting on what is appealing, what isn't, like how it really is personal, it really is unique. and yeah, and thank you all for being here.
Oh, thank you for all
Thank
your
you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And let me just post the exercise to the assignments.
Well, if anyone wants to check out my short film, it's in the shorts
Oh, we
channel.
can definitely look at that. We can definitely look
Yeah,
at
that'd be
it.
great.
Yeah.
Nice.
Just do finale exercise.
But it's been fantastic.
Yeah, this is like this animation lab for me, it's sort of like came out of nowhere, and just like just the fact that I happened upon this, I just feel really lucky that because yeah, this has been it's really been an amazing
Right.
kind of an amazing ride. A journey. I don't know. Something. Yeah, quite a ride. I know, but yeah, this. Yeah, I learned. I really feel like I learned a lot in this class. Like, and yeah, I definitely hope to made me feel like I want to do more animation in the future.
That's
Same
all.
here.
Better than a YouTube channel.
Let's take a
Mhm.
look at.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the short that the Tiger sent. It's gotta go over here. It's a trip to Kino. Tiger, does this have any licensed music or anything that we should be
Not that I
concerned
know
with?
of. Not that I know of.
Alright. In that case, let's give it a watch.
Boy there, give me a lift. I forgot my towel. This is all done by Cartoon Animator. You silly humans, I'm going to Kino to find out what's so interesting about these apes that love moving pictures. That should be interesting. Well, maybe not. 20 light years to your destination right ahead.
Well, hello there. Good afternoon. Where you off to in such a rush, little buddy?
That's it.
Alright.
Hey, nice, nice.
Took a week.
I mean, that's it for
like
a
it.
week-long project. This is definitely interesting.
Yeah.
It took a little while to figure out how the systems work, but they have an exaggeration tool. They have the 12 principles of animation built into the program that you take advantage of,
Okay.
and it's kind of you're still doing frame by frame, but it helps with tweens. It helps with
But you're not drawing, are you? As in, like,
it does have the
this looks
it
like a
does
lot of
have-
vector animation.
yeah, it works with other programs where you can do drawing and add it into the program. I was using a lot of their marketplace vector art, and I was taking some stuff from FreePic. But I did a lot of Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, After Effects to mix in with it, along with some AI voicing and some Audacity sound mixing.
Alright.
So, and then I had a friend do some mix for me.
Alright.
There's a lot that went
This
into it.
definitely feels like this is vector animation, like the way the art
It-
moves and everything.
It very much is vector based.
Alright. No, it's definitely interesting. Definitely interesting.
Yeah, I'm actually getting a new tablet in about a week, and so it's going to be my attempt into some drawing and some continue with vector art.
Alright.
Nice.
Anybody
Found it
else?
very funny that the alien the entire trip to Earth, he didn't even care to turn around and look where he's going.
Yeah, I didn't really have the uh, the other art, you could say, the other position for the alien. So I didn't really have much choice to be changing his perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So, and since I'm not much of an artist, I left it that way.
All right.
And was that slash
Yes,
towards the end
yes,
there?
that,
Okay.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
slash. Someone custom made that and put it into the marketplace, and
Oh.
I was like, "Oh, I'll buy that," and I put it into there because I was like, "Oh, let's have a guitar riff."
Nice.
But it took me like 2 hours to try and put all his hand in the right positions and then his fingers. So that took 2 hours.
All right.
Nice.
Good
Yeah,
stuff.
it seemed like it was matching up to the music, so yeah, I can see.
Yeah, I did my best to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to get the right timing for the fingers and stuff as best I could. So,
Did you animate the Elvis as well?
yes, that is what they call a spring action. They have this tool in the cartoon animator which they call a spring action. So you bone the character, and once you bone the character in the sprite editor, you can then use the spring editor, and it has a bunch of presets which allow you to make it animated. So up and down, little stretch, and then you can use the sprite editor to then position the arms and legs after its spring, and then on the timeline going back and forth, do some finesse edits, and voila.
Very nice.
But
I was just assuming that the Elvis was just an asset from the store and just automatically animated, but that's nice.
Oh, no. The asset is not boned, and it comes as just a character. You have to do the boning. You have to do the spring action. You have to choose what you're going to animate it with. But some of his characters do come animated, but and boned. But I happened to choose Elvis that wasn't. So.
All right. Interesting. Very interesting, for sure.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting program for sure.
All right.
Well, it's been great, people, but I have dinner to go to. So have a great evening. It's great
You too.
talking to you all, and I look
Bye.
forward
Yeah.
to the next.
Have a good one.
Thanks for sharing your short.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for sharing all your stuff. You're all very talented.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. So, as I said, this is unfortunately going to be it for me for today. As I also previously said, I'm currently in the process of storyboarding a short of my own. So, while I am interested in this exercise, I'm not sure if I'm going to be completely taking part of it.
Are you expecting? So should we be using like one of the model sheets, or were you expecting like a new? When you said introducing a character, do you mean like a new character we create, or
No, I mean,
just like a scene introducing a character? It doesn't have to be like a new character, right?
it needs, I mean, saying so long as you okay, sorry.
Ooh, sorry.
So long as you also like understand that this like when I say introduce a character, I don't mean it doesn't need to be like, oh, hello, who are you, that kind of stuff. That's not what it's supposed to be.
Right.
What I'm saying is treat it as the first scene of a movie, for example, where the character appears. What does that scene, what does the actions tell us about them? What do they say about it? Or think about how Overwatch does like their little select character animations where you pick a character and immediately they're doing something, or like Tracer's just like blinking around and like doing all those funky things, or Lucio's just being a DJ and like doing the dance moves and stuff. The things that make them appealing, you know, that kind of stuff. When I say introduce, it's like make a sequence. Does it need to be a scene? A sequence that allows us to get to know the character, you know, in some way.
Yeah. Gotcha.
I think that's the best way that I can explain it, really.
Yeah, that makes actually, yeah. Comparing it to like the character select on a video game like Overwatch, that's an interesting point because yeah, like in just a few seconds you have to sort of convey what the character is all about and the personality and yeah.
And that's exactly the point. It's like try to like tell us what the character is about without like a very long thing, right? Like don't overdo it, basically. And obviously this kind of stuff goes in like character design. It goes in the actual animation. Like everything's going to be working together. It's same old, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right. No, thank you for asking the question. Like I did kind of expect the question to come up. I just didn't really know how to phrase it any better.
No. Yeah, it makes sense. But you're saying it could also be like the start of a movie where like this is the first time you see a character and there's some sort of dramatic or funny way that they're introduced. Like I guess that could also another way to look at it.
That also counts.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't have to be strictly like, so long as the character itself is conveyed somehow to us, like the character is in the person that they are. And so if you're treating it as a movie, don't skip out on like some set design, because set design helps inform a lot of character in a way too. Where a character is, how that space is organized or disorganized, what they do in that space, all those kinds of things, they do matter and they tell us a lot about people. So don't skip out on those if you're doing it like a movie kind of thing. If you're doing it like a game, just do it. I don't know. It can be like blank paper even, sort of.
And what do you mean by it can be like blank paper?
Like you don't need to like do a lot of set designing or backgrounds or all that kind of stuff. Like you can just work off of basically anything. That's what I meant. All right, and with that, that's going to be my farewell for today. I'll see you both. I'll see you all next week. Thank you for joining.
All right,
Thank you. For coming.
Have a good week.
You too, Nels.
Yep, thank you.
Have a good week.
Bye.
Have a good week.
Everyone have a good week.
Yep, have a good one.
Yep.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye everybody.
And don't forget to like check out like all the script camp stuff and whatever, all the fancy new classes and the queer and the women's writers groups and all that kind of stuff. Very cool stuff, which I wish I were able to join. But yes, do check them out. They're looking cool. And I hope to see you next time. So have a good one. Thanks for coming.